A millionaire saw his maid save his son from drowning. What he did next changed everything. That night, the Moretti mansion in Rio de Janeiro shone like a palace. Golden lights bathed the marble walls, reflected on crystal glasses of champagne, and sparkled in the eyes of more than 200 of the country's most powerful guests. Politicians, wealthy businessmen, and movie stars gathered to celebrate a multi-million-dollar merger. The music from a live orchestra blended with cheerful laughter, creating a portrait of luxury only the elite could understand. Elena Duarte, 29 years old, slipped quietly among the crowd with a heavy silver tray. She kept her head down, moving softly so that no one would notice her. As a housekeeper in the Moretti household, Elena had learned how to become invisible. The less she was seen, the safer she was. In this world, even the smallest mistake could cost her everything. But tonight, luck was not on her side. From the grand staircase, Isabella Moretti appeared. At 35, her beauty had been bought with surgeries and expensive treatments. The red gown she wore was worth more than Elena's yearly salary. Isabella walked through the crowd like a queen, and everyone else were merely servants. "Elena!" Her voice cut the air like a knife. The music stopped. Conversations died instantly. 200 pairs of eyes turned toward the young woman in her simple uniform. Elena's heart pounded wildly. She froze, swallowing hard. "Yes, ma'am," she whispered, her voice trembling. Isabella approached, a glass of champagne in hand. "Look, everyone," she said loudly, making sure every guest could hear. "Our maid spilled champagne on the Italian sofa worth $15,000. Such carelessness is unforgivable." A wave of whispers spread across the room. Elena looked up in confusion. She knew she hadn't spilled anything. The sofa remained spotless. "Madam, Elena began, but before she could finish, Isabella deliberately tilted her glass, pouring the golden liquid over the fine fabric. The stain spread quickly. Isabella smirked. "Now there's a mark. Elena, kneel down and clean it. I want everyone here to see how I deal with an irresponsible servant." The silence was suffocating. No one dared to move. Dozens of eyes filled with curiosity, pity, and disdain fell on the young woman. Elena felt her eyes burn, her tears ready to fall. But she swallowed them, set the tray aside, and slowly knelt down. Humiliation pressed down on her with every breath. Her bare hands trembled as they wiped the wet fabric, while hundreds of eyes watched. A mocking laugh rose from behind. "Pathetic! People like her are useless." Elena bit her lip until she tasted blood. But when she lifted her head, her eyes locked with Marco Moretti's. Her employer stood just a few feet away, fists clenched, jaw tight. His dark eyes met hers for a moment that seemed eternal. Elena felt her chest tighten. She was used to Marco's indifference, but tonight there was something different. An inner struggle, a pain he could not hide. And then it vanished. Isabella called her husband with a sharp smile, dragging him away. Elena remained on her knees, her hands cold and wet, her heart breaking in silence. But from behind a marble column, Gabriel, the 8-year-old boy, held his new phone tightly, eyes wide open. He had recorded everything, every word, every tear, every second of humiliation his mother inflicted on the only woman who had ever been kind to him. 15 minutes after the humiliation, the party had moved to the massive pool behind the mansion. Crystal chandeliers reflected on the blue surface, while a live band played samba tunes. Guests laughed loudly, champagne flowing endlessly, their voices filling the night. Gabriel, the 8-year-old boy, played near the water with other children. Chasing after a ball that had fallen into the pool, he forgot his promise to his mother not to go near the edge. His sneakers slipped on the wet marble. In a split second, he fell backward into the icy water. Splash. At first, no one paid attention. They assumed the boy could swim. But seconds passed, 10, 20, and he still hadn't surfaced. "Gabriel!" another child screamed. "He can't swim!" Music stopped. Laughter vanished. 200 powerful people crowded around the pool, staring at the boy struggling beneath the water. Instead of jumping in, they only shouted, "Somebody help him! Call security! Quickly!" Marco Moretti was only 10 meters away. He dropped his tablet, which shattered on the ground, and ran. But as he saw his son sinking, panic froze his body. His legs refused to move. "Somebody do something! Save my boy!" he cried, but he couldn't move an inch. Isabella rushed to the pool, her gown tangled. She screamed hysterically, "My son! Please, someone save him!" Yet still, no one jumped. They filmed, they yelled, they cried, but not a single person moved. Inside the kitchen, Elena was washing crystal glasses when the screams pierced the air. She dropped everything and ran. The sight before her made her blood freeze. Gabriel sinking, tiny arms flailing, mouth opening for air but swallowing only water. Without hesitation, Elena pushed through the crowd. She ripped off her apron and dove straight into the pool. Splash! The icy water closed around her, choking her, but she kicked harder, forcing herself deeper. Gabriel was at the bottom, his eyes wide with terror. Elena reached out, pulling him into her arms. The boy clung to her desperately. With every ounce of strength, she kicked upward, lungs burning, legs screaming, but she didn't stop. Breaking the surface, she gasped, "Hold on to me! Don't let go!" Gabriel coughed, choking, but clutched her tightly. The crowd swarmed the edge. Marco, as if awakening, knelt down, reaching out. "Give me my son!" Elena pushed Gabriel toward him. Marco pulled the boy out, clutching him, eyes brimming with tears. But the moment Gabriel was safe, Elena's strength collapsed. Her head spun. She thrashed weakly, then slammed against the marble edge. Crack! Blood seeped into the water. Her body sank. "No, Elena!" Marco screamed. He placed Gabriel safely on the ground and dove back in. This time, there was no hesitation. The freezing water cut his skin, but he forced himself down. At the bottom, he saw her, hair floating, eyes closed. He wrapped his arms around her and pulled upward with all his might. On the surface, Elena lay motionless. She wasn't breathing. Marco pressed her chest, gave her his breath, his voice breaking. "Breathe, please!" Water spilled from her lips, but still no sign of life. His eyes filled with tears. "Don't leave me. Don't leave him." One beat, two. Then suddenly, Elena coughed violently. Water gushed out. Her eyes fluttered open. Marco nearly sobbed, cupping her face. "You're safe. Thank God." The crowd erupted. 200 guests who had frozen in fear now cheered as if witnessing a miracle. Cameras captured everything. The moment Marco Moretti, one of the richest men in the country, held his bleeding, soaking maid in his arms with gratitude and something deeper in his eyes. In his father's embrace, Gabriel wept uncontrollably, staring at Elena, the woman who had just given him a second chance at life. The siren of the ambulance cut through the night. Red and blue lights flashed as the convoy sped toward São Luís Hospital, the finest in Rio de Janeiro. The entrance was already besieged by dozens of reporters. Cameras, microphones, and flashes turned the night into day. Inside the hospital, Elena lay unconscious on the emergency bed, her head bandaged, her breathing shallow. Doctors worked relentlessly, monitoring every vital sign. Marco sat beside her, holding her cold hand tightly, dark circles under his eyes, unwilling to move even for a second. Isabella stormed in like a hurricane. She wore another elegant gown, her face perfectly painted, but her eyes sharp with fury. "Marco, what are you doing here, holding that woman's hand in front of the press?" Marco turned, his voice hoarse after hours of silence. "She saved our son's life." "My son?" Isabella snapped bitterly. "Do you know the world is calling me a coward? They call her a hero and me a disgrace." Marco gripped Elena's hand even tighter, eyes fixed on her pale face. "They're right. She is a hero, and all of us, we just stood there." Isabella's face turned purple, words dying in her throat. Out in the corridor, Gabriel sat on a bench, clothes still soaked. He clutched his phone tightly, his young face full of resolve. When Marco came out, the boy grabbed his sleeve. "Dad, I need to show you something." He opened a video. On the screen appeared the earlier scene, Isabella pouring champagne on the sofa and forcing Elena to kneel and clean. Every insult, every cruel laugh was crystal clear. Marco froze, his hands trembling. "I recorded more," Gabriel whispered. "Last night I heard Mom on the phone. I got scared, so I pressed record." He played another file. Isabella's voice filled the air. "Don't worry. After the party, she'll have an accident. It'll look like a real accident." Marco felt his blood turn to ice. He collapsed onto a chair, burying his face in his hands. My God, she planned to kill Elena. Gabriel tugged at his father's shirt, tears brimming in his eyes. "Dad, we have to protect her. I don't want Mom to hurt Elena. I just want her to stay with us." Marco looked at his son, then through the glass door into the emergency room. Elena lay still, fragile, as if she could vanish at any moment. Inside him, a decision began to form, clearer, stronger than ever before. Meanwhile, outside, the storm grew louder. Headlines screamed, "Why did 200 guests stand frozen while a maid jumped in? What has turned the wealthy so heartless?" And at the very center of it all was Elena Duarte, the once invisible maid, now the woman the entire country watched with bated breath. 3 days after the incident, Elena still lay in the intensive care unit. Bandages wrapped around her head, her body frail, but her breathing steady. 2 guards stood outside the door to keep reporters away. Marco hardly left her side. He slept in the chair by her bed, still holding her delicate hand. When she stirred and opened her eyes, the first thing she saw was his weary face, softened by tenderness. You're still here?" Elena's voice was faint, almost a whisper. Marco tightened his grip on her hand. "I'm not going anywhere. I owe you my son's life, and I owe myself for being silent for too long." Elena shook her head weakly. "You don't owe me anything. I only did what I thought was right." Marco leaned closer, his voice breaking. "Elena, you don't understand. For so long, I watched you suffer. I wanted to step in, but I always backed away. And when you dove into that water, I realized, if I lost you, I could never forgive myself." Tears blurred Elena's vision. She turned her face aside. "Don't say that. I'm only the maid in your house. We don't belong to the same world." Marco gently lifted her chin, forcing their eyes to meet. "My world was never real, but this moment, right here, is real. You gave Gabriel life, and you gave me life too." Elena trembled, her heart racing. For months she had noticed his gaze, the anonymous flowers left at her door. Now all the pieces came together into one undeniable truth. Just as the air grew too heavy, the door burst open. Gabriel rushed in, eyes glowing. "Miss Elena, you're awake!" He threw himself into her arms, and Elena broke into tears. He whispered, "I want you to stay with me forever. You're my mother, not anyone else." Elena held him close, her heart torn and full at once. Marco stood beside them, his eyes filled with determination. In that moment, the 3 of them felt an invisible thread binding them together, as a true family, a new family born out of tragedy. 4 days later, Elena was discharged from the hospital. The stitches on her head had healed, her body still weak, but strong enough to return. Marco drove her himself, while Gabriel sat in the back seat, holding her hand the entire way. As the car stopped at the Moretti mansion, tension already thickened the air. The grand doors flew open, and Isabella appeared. She wore a designer gown, her face painted flawlessly, but her eyes burned with fury. "Well, isn't this rich?" Isabella hissed, storming down the steps. "You dare bring her into my house?" Marco stepped out, gripping Elena's hand tightly. "It's not your house, it's mine, and from now on, Elena has a place here." Isabella let out a bitter, piercing laugh. "You've lost your mind, Marco, a filthy maid, and you dare parade her here like she's the lady of the house?" Elena moved to step back, but Marco held firm. He stared straight into his wife's eyes. "Enough, Isabella. I've endured your cruelty long enough. That night, when you humiliated Elena in front of 200 guests, I knew this marriage was already dead." Isabella screamed, "How dare you disgrace me? I am your wife, and she's nothing, a servant you secretly lusted after." Marco drew a deep breath, his voice unwavering. "You're right. I've watched Elena for 4 years. I tried to deny it, but my heart chose her long ago. This marriage is an empty shell. I want a divorce." The room exploded. Isabella's eyes widened, her voice shrieking, "You'll pay for this. I want half of everything, and I'll take the boy." Gabriel stepped forward, his eyes wet but blazing. "No, I'm not going with you." Isabella froze, then barked, "Gabriel, be silent. I am your mother. I have the right." Gabriel's small hands shook, but he pulled his phone from his pocket and pressed play. Isabella's voice rang out clearly. "Don't worry. After the party, she'll have an accident. It'll look like a real accident." The room fell silent. Elena stiffened. Marco stared at his wife in horror. Gabriel lifted his tearful face, his voice firm. "You don't love me? You don't protect me? Elena does. You only gave birth to me, but you're a bad person. I don't want to go with you." The word struck Isabella like a slap. She staggered, then shrieked wildly, "Traitors! All of you are traitors!" Marco wrapped his arms around his son, shielding Elena behind him. His voice dropped low, cold as steel. "Go, Isabella. The lawyers will file for divorce tomorrow morning. You've lost me, and you've lost your son." Isabella trembled, her eyes bloodshot. She spun toward the door, but before leaving she turned back, her voice venomous, each word like a curse. "Don't think this is over. I'll be back, and when I do, none of you will know peace." The door slammed shut. Elena clutched Gabriel close, while Marco's grip on her shoulders tightened. Fear lingered, but stronger still was the fire of resolve. They would protect each other at any cost. That afternoon, Gabriel was playing in the garden after school. The sky glowed golden, the breeze stirring the rose bushes. Yet he soon realized he was not alone. Isabella appeared along the stone path, her heels clicking sharply. A strained smile sat on her lips, thinly veiling the fury beneath. "Gabriel, my son." Her voice softened unusually. "I just want to talk." Gabriel clutched the ball in his hands, wary. "Talk about what?" Isabella lowered herself onto the stone bench, folding her hands. "Those recordings, I know you still have them. Sweetheart, they're private matters between adults. Please, delete them. Don't let anyone else hear them. If you love me, you'll do it, won't you?" Gabriel stared at her, voice trembling yet firm. "You always lie. I don't believe you anymore." Isabella froze, forcing a smile. "Lie? You're just mistaken. I only want to protect the family." "No!" Gabriel shouted, tears spilling down his cheeks. "I have proof. I heard you say it yourself. You never loved Dad. You only wanted his money, and you planned to run away with David." His small hands shook as he pulled out his phone and pressed play. Isabella's voice rang out, cold and damning. 15 years pretending to love Marco has been killing me. When I'm in the U.S. with David, I won't have to pretend anymore." The air grew heavy. From the balcony above, Marco had heard every word. He stood frozen, each sentence slicing into him like a blade. He descended into the garden, his hollow eyes fixed on his wife. "Isabella?" His voice cracked. So it was all a lie? Isabella jolted, scrambling. "Marco, it's not what you think. I was angry. I didn't mean it." Marco shook his head, his hands trembling against the stone railing. 15 years I gave, endured, sacrificed, and to you I was nothing but a wallet? Elena stepped into the garden, stunned by the scene. Gabriel flung himself into his father's arms, sobbing, "I told you, she doesn't love you or me. She only loves money and herself." Isabella's body quivered, her face twisting before she let out a bitter laugh. "Fine, I've lost. My husband, my son. But don't think I'll give up, especially not on that maid." She jabbed a finger toward Elena, eyes blazing. "You will pay for stealing everything from me." Elena recoiled, but Marco stepped in front of her, his voice like iron. "Enough, Isabella. You've destroyed yourself. Don't drag Elena down with you." Gabriel turned to his mother, his tear-stained eyes cutting like knives. "Mom, why can't you just be good? Why do you have to be cruel?" For a flicker, Isabella's eyes softened. But then she clenched her jaw, spitting out, "Because this world isn't made for good people, Gabriel. One day, you'll understand." She spun on her heel, vanishing beyond the iron gates. Gabriel broke into sobs, clutching Elena tightly. "Aunt Elena, I'm scared. I'm scared she'll hurt you." Marco crouched down, wrapping both of them in his arms. "No one will touch us again. I promise." But deep inside, for the first time since everything began, Elena felt true fear. Isabella's threats lingered like a dark shadow, a storm yet to come. That night, after Isabella stormed off, Elena sat silently on the balcony. Moonlight washed over her face, etched with worry. "Marco, maybe I should leave. My presence only puts you and Gabriel in danger." Marco stepped closer, gripping her hands tightly. "No, Elena. We've been running too long. The only way to end this is to face it head on, by declaring our love openly. Let the world know that I choose you." Elena lifted her gaze, eyes shimmering. Marco dropped to one knee, his voice raw with emotion. "Elena Rossi, will you marry me? Will you stand by my side as we face everything together?" Tears streamed down her cheeks as she whispered, "Yes, Marco, I will." They embraced, believing the storm was finally passing. But elsewhere, in a dimly lit room, Isabella sat before a tiny listening device linked to Marco's phone. She had heard every word of the proposal. "A wedding, is it?" she sneered. "Fine. If they want the whole nation to witness, I'll give them a wedding they'll never forget." That afternoon, Elena received an unexpected text from an unknown number. "Meet me at Cafe Milano, 7 p.m., alone." Her heart tightened. It could only be Isabella. After a moment of hesitation, Elena decided to go, not out of fear, but because she wanted to end these vile games. The cafe sat on a quiet street corner. When Elena walked in, Isabella was already there, her eyes hidden behind large sunglasses, a steaming espresso on the table. "Elena!" Isabella removed her glasses, her lips painted a deep crimson. "Thank you for coming." Elena took the seat opposite, her posture straight, her tone calm. "What do you want?" Without preamble, Isabella placed a thick envelope on the table, the thud echoing sharply. 2 million euros, all yours if you leave Marco and Gabriel. With this money, you can start a new life anywhere. Don't be foolish clinging to a family that was never yours. Elena looked at the envelope, then straight into Isabella's eyes. Her voice rang firm. "I don't want your money." Isabella's brows drew together as she leaned forward. Elena, listen to me. I can turn your life into hell, or I can make it heaven. All you have to do is disappear." Elena inhaled deeply, her hand tightening on the table, yet her voice remained steady. "Don't you understand? I will never abandon Marco and Gabriel. They are my family, and I will protect them to the very end." Isabella's face twisted, anger flashing in her eyes. "Who do you think you are? Some lowborn maid daring to replace me?" Elena's gaze held firm. "I'm not replacing anyone. You lost them yourself. Marco needed love. Gabriel needed protection. You gave them neither. I did." The air in the cafe grew taut as wire. A few customers glanced over, sensing the chill radiating from their table. Isabella let out a harsh laugh. "Pathetic! You think love will save you? The world runs on money and power, not cheap feelings." Elena shot back, her voice sharp as steel. "The world may run on money, but families don't. One day you'll realize your mistake. And if you're lucky, Gabriel might still forgive you." Isabella faltered for a split second, then masked it with a bitter smirk. She stood, snatching the envelope, her words venomous. "You'll regret this." Elena sat still, her eyes unwavering. "No, the one who'll regret it is you, if you keep walking this path." Isabella said nothing more. She turned and strode out, the heavy scent of her perfume lingering like poison in the suffocating air. Elena remained for a few minutes, her hands trembling slightly. Yet in her eyes now burned not only fear, but unshakable resolve. This time, she would never back down. The day of Marco and Elena's wedding arrived, awaited by the entire city. The media called it the wedding of the century, not only because of Marco's status, but because of a love story that defied class and prejudice. San Michele Church was drenched in white flowers and light. Over 300 guests filled the pews, while thousands gathered outside, chanting and cheering. Millions more tuned in to watch the broadcast. Marco stood at the altar, handsome in his black suit. Beside him, Gabriel gripped the phone in his pocket, eyes full of resolve. The organ swelled, the grand doors opened. Elena appeared, radiant in her gown, her smile overflowing with joy. Each step carried her away from humiliation toward the light. But halfway down the aisle, a scream split the air. "Stop!" The church gasped. All heads turned. Isabella, clad in a blazing red dress, stormed in. Cameras swiveled toward her. The crowd outside roared. "This wedding cannot go on," she shrieked. "She's a fraud, with a filthy past." Elena lifted her chin, calm and unyielding. "If you have proof, show it here, before everyone." Smirking, Isabella beckoned. A woman appeared, sobbing theatrically. "Elena, why did you abandon me? I'm your half-sister, left to suffer alone." Whispers rippled through the church. Doubt flickered among the guests. Isabella's smile widened. Then Gabriel strode forward, his young voice clear and fierce. "Enough! Mom, stop lying!" Isabella froze. Gabriel pulled out his phone, plugged it into the priest's microphone, and pressed play. Her voice boomed through the church. "Vanya, you'll play Elena's sister. I'll pay you $50,000. Just cry hard enough to ruin the wedding." Gasps erupted. The woman pretending to be Elena's sister paled, then bolted from the church. Guests leapt to their feet, shouting, "Liar!" "How cruel!" Isabella trembled, screaming over the uproar, "Don't believe this. It's fake." But Gabriel played another clip. "I don't care if it's true or false. What matters is humiliating Elena in front of the entire country." The crowd roared in outrage. Online, hashtags condemning Isabella exploded. Elena walked closer, her voice steady. "Do you see, Isabella? Your own cruelty has destroyed you." Marco stepped down, standing at Elena's side. "You have no power left, only hatred." 2 police officers entered the church. "Mrs. Isabella Moretti, you are under arrest for slander and threats." Isabella thrashed, shrieking, "I'll be back! I'll destroy you all!" But no one listened. Guests rose, clapping thunderously as she was led away. Outside, the crowd erupted, chanting Elena's name, while cameras broadcast Isabella's disgrace nationwide. Only then did silence fall inside the church. The priest smiled gently. "Shall we proceed with the ceremony?" Elena drew a deep breath and resumed her walk, each step firmer, her eyes locked on Marco, the man who chose her against all odds. When the priest asked, Marco's voice rang out, "I do." Elena, tears shimmering, answered, "You gave me a family. I do." They kissed, long and tender, as the church erupted in applause. Gabriel bounded onto the altar, hugging them tightly. "Now we're truly a family." Outside, church bells tolled, fireworks lit the sky. The crowd chanted Elena's name, once humiliated, now celebrated as a symbol of love and courage. By the time the reception ended, it was past midnight. The city was still buzzing, headlines flashing on giant screens, crowds celebrating in the streets. Only when the car turned toward the quiet hills did peace return, golden streetlights casting a soft glow as the family drove home. In the back seat, Gabriel leaned against Elena. His small voice broke the silence. "Dad, where's Mom Isabella now?" Marco tightened his grip on the steering wheel, answering slowly. "At the police station. She'll have to stay there for a while." Gabriel was quiet for a few seconds before asking again, "Can I visit her someday?" Marco glanced at Elena in the rearview mirror. They shared a look, then both nodded. "If you want to, when you're older, you can, but you don't have to. No one will force you into something you're not ready for." Gabriel lowered his head, whispering softly, "I'm not angry at her. I just feel sorry, because she missed the chance to have a wonderful family." Elena squeezed his little hand, her heart aching yet overflowing with love. When they arrived at the mansion, the scent of roses drifted through the night air. Marco and Elena settled on the wooden bench by the porch while the nanny carried a sleeping Gabriel inside. "We did it," Marco whispered. "Did what?" Elena asked, resting her head on his shoulder. "We survived it all and came out stronger." A smile touched Elena's lips, tears shimmering under the moonlight. "It's funny. Back when I was just a maid in this house, I dreamed of sitting beside you like this. Now it's real and even more beautiful than the dream." They sat in silence, letting the night cradle them as their hearts embraced a new beginning. 4 years had passed since that unforgettable wedding. The Moretti home was now filled with laughter. Elena had given birth to a beautiful baby girl named Sophia. In the garden, Gabriel ran in circles, his laughter mixing with the coos of his baby sister. Marco stood on the porch, holding Elena close, his eyes drinking in the warmth he had once only dreamed of. "You've turned this house into a real family," Marco whispered. Elena smiled, resting her head on his shoulder, happiness overflowing. Across the city, Isabella stepped out of the prison gates. 2 years had changed her. Gone was the arrogance. What remained were weary eyes, lined with pain and regret. The next day, Isabella came to the Moretti mansion. When the door opened, Elena stepped out, Sophia in her arms. Seeing the baby, Isabella's shoulders trembled, tears welling. "Elena," her voice broke, I'm sorry. Sorry for everything. I was wrong. I have no excuses left." Elena studied the woman who had once tried to destroy her. Silence lingered, then she slowly nodded, opening her arms. "If you truly want to change, start today. Everyone deserves a chance to make things right." Isabella sobbed, her hands trembling, yet she dared not touch the baby. She only stepped back, whispering, "I don't deserve that. Your forgiveness is enough." Weeks later, Gabriel spotted Isabella across the street as he walked to school. She didn't come closer, only lifted her phone to her ear. When he answered, her voice shook. "Gabriel, it's Mom. I'm sorry for everything I did. I hurt you. I hurt your family. I don't expect you to forget, but I hope you can forgive." Gabriel held the phone tightly, his eyes glistening. "Mom, I was angry for a long time, but I'm not anymore. I forgive you." On the other end, Isabella broke into sobs, covering her face among strangers. For the first time in years, her heart felt lighter. That evening, back at the mansion, Elna placed Sophia into Marco's arms. Gabriel sat beside them, smiling with joy. Elena looked around, a complete family, no shadows, only light and laughter. In that moment, Marco whispered, "At last we have a true family." 4 people, once torn apart by storms, now sat together under the sunset. A chapter closed, giving way to pure happiness, where love and forgiveness lived side by side.